Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your interest in the project and for attending this project overview. My name is Dana Hart. I'm the director here at Ilsley Public Library. And the plan for today is I will give a quick, hopefully 15-20 minute or so overview of the project. I've got some PowerPoint slides I can share. And then we will open it up for questions. And as I said, we'll record this and post it after the fact, so all the questions and answers are recorded. And if there's any tricky questions that I can't answer on the fly, I will be sure to post the answers on the project website after the fact. So questions will get answered even if I can't do it in the moment. So before we get started, I'm going to ask everyone, if you haven't already, to update your Zoom name to include both your personal name and, if you don't mind, the firm that you're with, just so we know who's here. I think some of you have done that already. And then I'm going to ask two of my colleagues, Joe and Judith, to introduce themselves. Joe?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Joe McVeigh. I'm the president of the Ilsley Public Library Board of Trustees and helping to steer the Ilsley 100 project team, which is the group that's been delegated by the town select board to work on this project. If you're having trouble changing your name on Zoom, I think if you can right click on either your picture or if you can see the participant list on your name there, that ought to give you the option to rename yourself. And you can just put in your name and maybe the name of your firm, unless there's a whole bunch of people in the room with you, in which case that's probably fine. But just to echo Dana's welcome, we're very excited to be at this point in the project, and we thank you for your interest. And Judith, do you want to say hello?
Good morning, Judith Harris. My role in this adventure is as liaison to the town of Middlebury administration. So I'm one of the project team members in that capacity.
Okay.
Hey, and I just saw that David had his hand up. David, did you have a quick question before we get started here? Or I'm sorry, that was Michael, I think.
No, I'm good. No,
okay.
No problem.
All right.
Okay, great. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. Okay. All right. So for anyone who has not been able to visit our wonderful library, the Ilsley Public Library is the municipal library in Middlebury, Vermont. We're really more than a library. We're a community center, and I think of us as kind of the beating heart of Middlebury. And even to some extent, Addison County. We are the largest library in the county. And many towns in Addison County don't have their own public library. So we're kind of the de facto library of the county. And we're one of the larger and busier libraries in the state. Even though Middlebury isn't such a huge town, and it's certainly not a city, our usage statistics and attendance are usually in the top 5 in the state. So we're up there with some of the larger libraries like Fletcher Free, which is great. I included a couple of statistics on this slide so you can kind of get a sense of the library's use. But I will say that these are from 2022 and they're what we would consider really low. Pre-pandemic, we had closer to 170,000 annual visitors. So in a town of 8,000, that really, I think, speaks to the volume of community members that we welcome each year. And we checked out closer to 160,000 items. During the pandemic, that obviously all of our usage statistics really took a hit. But each year since then, we've been climbing back up, and I expect we'll get back to our regular use relatively quickly. Prior to the pandemic, every measurable use of the library had been increasing for a number of years. Which is part of why we need to take on this project. And of course, libraries today are a lot more than just books. We host programs. We're a meeting spot in the community. People do distance learning and work remotely here. And we've been serving the community for almost 100 years. Our original building was constructed in 1924. And this shows the aerial view of our first floor. So you can see the outline in the center of our historic 1924 building. So kind of towards the end of the Carnegie period, but still designed very much in the Carnegie style in the cruciform shape. Then in 1977, we had an addition put on, which was really, my understanding is that this was just an attempt to make the second and third floor of the original building accessible. It put in an elevator and a staircase and then a little bit of staff spacing. So we have a book processing room in that addition. And then again in 1988, we expanded once again. This was a much larger expansion, and this allowed us to add a reference room, a pretty big community meeting room, a computer lab, and a whole lot of stack space. So it allowed our collection to grow significantly. So if we go back to that first slide, you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see my mouse as I'm indicating on the image, but right in the middle, this is the 1924 building. And then if you look to the left, you can see the elevator and a little bit of the 1977 edition. And then all the way to the right, you can see a small part of the 1988 edition.
I'll just jump in here to say that Dana is speaking from her office within the library, and that for you, that right and left there might be the other way around. So
Thank you.
The 77 edition is the one on the right, where you can see the elevator tower, and the 88 is the one on the left with the bay windows there.
Thank you, Joe. So we haven't had any major work done really since the 88, with the exception of some roof repairs and things like that. So there's really two reasons why we're taking on this project. One is that all of our mechanical systems are just at the end of their life. We have, I would say, deferred maintenance on a number of issues for a long time, and we've really reached the point where we can't push it out any longer. Our heater is totally unreliable and inefficient, and at the end of its life. Our elevator, same thing. We have leaks in the basement, which is where we have the children's room. We also have leaks in our roof, which have been a bigger problem this year than in years past, which is concerning. And since we don't have any ventilation, all of this leaking water and the lack of fresh air in the winter leads to mold and all sorts of unpleasant issues. So we need to address some stuff just to keep the building going, just to continue operating. The other big challenge is that the nature of library services have changed significantly since the 80s. They've really expanded, and the building as it stands now is not super flexible. It's not large enough, for one thing. We need more space to add programs and services and resources. And the spaces that we do have are kind of, there's a lot of load-bearing columns and walls, and in some ways the library can feel a little bit maze-like, and it makes it really hard for us to adapt our services. And that's been a big challenge. We have nowhere near enough staff and storage spaces. This picture on this slide is of what used to be a stairwell and is now an office for 3 librarians, plus it is the only storage we have for our youth department. So that kind of illustrates some of the challenges we have on the back end trying to run the library in such cramped quarters. There's a lack of sight lines throughout the building. That's a big problem, of course, in public buildings and especially in libraries. It's a safety concern. And then our third floor, which is occupied by Middlebury Community Television, they're a partner of ours, doesn't have a secondary egress. So that's something we really have to address. Oh, and I didn't mention the accessibility issues, but our front entrance, which is really like our main entrance, is not accessible. and our ADA compliant entrance, which is on the side of the building, is really unwelcoming. So there's a whole host of kind of programmatic issues that we want to address with this project. So about a year ago, the Middlebury Select Board created a group called the Ilsley 100 Project Team. And this is the group that they tasked with sort of assessing the building, the library's needs, and coming up with a plan to address those needs. And our guiding vision for our new library is that we want to be a welcoming, accessible, and safe community hub with the flexibility and sustainability to enrich community members' lives now and into the future. So that's really our guiding star. That's what we want to deliver to the Middlebury community and the greater area. And over the past year, the project team has worked really hard. They visited recently redesigned public libraries around the state. We have researched and reviewed best practices in library design, what's going on around the country at other libraries. We've done a lot of community outreach and engagement to find out, what does the community want to see in a new library building? How can this building meet multiple needs in the community? How can it be a bigger project? And what we've found is that we'd really like to add a bunch of spaces. We want to add a conference room. We've had a huge increase in public meetings and people working remotely since the pandemic, so we'd like to better facilitate that. We want to add a community living room. The library is a really crucial third space for every sector of our community. It's really the one place in Middlebury where you can go for free and hang out all day and connect with other people. So we'd like to have spaces that kind of facilitate and foster that community aspect. We would love to have a library activity room. We do a ton of library programming. Last year we offered more programs than any other library in the state, in fact. And the spaces that we have now don't support the kind of programs that we want to do. They're very difficult to clean. They don't have good acoustic control. As this image demonstrates, children require a lot of space for movement in their programs. So we want to have spaces that allow us to offer really rich and engaging programs. We'd love to add a dedicated space for teens. We are really lucky that we have a dedicated teen librarian at Ilsley, and she has a wonderful connection with that age group. And we know that they would use the library a lot more if they had their own space here, which they don't currently. And of course, we'd like to have adequate and safe facilities for families. Our restrooms right now fall short of that. And we'd like to expand some spaces, especially pre-K and kindergarten. We'd like to double that area essentially. We'd like to segregate the elementary and middle school areas because those are really distinct developmental groups. And right now they're kind of squished together, which leads to all sorts of challenges. We would like to enlarge our community meeting room and make it more flexible. And as I mentioned before, we are really in desperate need of improving our staff and storage spaces. So the Ilsley 100 project team worked with library staff and with Judith and with a library consultant named Barbara Doyle Wilch to come up with a preliminary program to figure out how much space we would need to achieve all of those new and expanded spaces. And we think it's about 24,000 square feet. So the next task for the project team became answering the question, how are we going to go about securing this additional space? So the project team looked at 4 potential scopes of work. We knew from past attempts at addressing the library's facility issues, this project has kind of been in the works in one way or another since 2007. So there have been a lot of effort and a lot of groups and community members thinking about this for a long time. And we knew that many people in the community were going to want us to answer the question, is it worth maintaining the original building? What would it cost to just fix the original building and not expand? So the project team considered 4 different scopes of work. One of them was just not expanding at all, but just fixing what's broken essentially with the current building. One of them was expanding and renovating the existing structure, staying on site. One of them was renovating the existing structure, excuse me, and then adding an annex. There's a couple of empty buildings downtown, and that's something that has come up a lot over the past few years. People wondering, how can we fill those spaces, and is there a way that the library project could address that? So we considered it. And then building new on an alternative location was also considered. The project team did a deep dive on all of these. We worked with a cost estimator to get an idea of what these options might cost, and we got a lot of feedback from the community to see what was appealing to them. And overwhelmingly, people preferred option B, renovating and expanding and staying on site. And that's also what the project team thought made most sense. So ultimately, that is what the project team recommended to our select board, and what the select board has sort of endorsed as the direction we're going to go in, which has gotten us to here. So we know we want to stay on the site. We understand that achieving the necessary square footage for our program will probably involve some or even full demolition of the 77 and 88 additions, but we're not sure. We think this will cost, the order of magnitude estimate that we have obtained for this is $14.8 million. So we plan to pursue grants. We're already pursuing some grants, government funding. We are going to have a private capital campaign. We're hoping to launch that potentially in the fall. Although, timing is all up in the air right now. And then, of course, we anticipate there'll be a municipal bond for some portion of this. So some things that the community really loved about this direction is that it retains the 1924 building. The community really values that historical structure. It's an architectural gem, and people have lots of warm memories from their own childhood, from their children's use of the library. So people were very excited about that. The community also really loved that this option will allow for the new and expanded spaces. I was very gratified that no one seemed too excited about option A, which was just fixing what's broken and maintaining the current square footage. The community really does want to see the library expand, and they really do want to see us make big improvements and not just fix, the HVAC system and replace the elevator. So I think that's really encouraging, because I do think this project has widespread community support. And people also really liked that we would retain space for Middlebury Community Television and improve the space for them. That's a partnership that the community really values. Some challenges with this option that we talked about are that in order to get the required square footage that we want, we think we're going to have to pretty much fill up the property footprint. So even though we do want to be thinking about future growth, that might be challenging because we can't really sprawl outwards too much further than we will probably have to do for this project. We do think we're going to have to relocate during construction, so we're starting to think ahead towards what that might look like. And then sort of in the same line, filling up the property footprint means we're going to have less space for outdoor programming. We don't have a ton of space for outdoor programming right now, but we do have some, and we've used it a lot more since COVID became an issue. So those are some things on our mind that might be challenging, but overall,
Dana, I wanted to just jump in for a second to point out to people that the image that you're seeing on your screen is just purely conceptual. It doesn't suggest anything about the way in which an expansion might take place. It was simply an image that was designed to help people as we were considering those 4 different options to understand what it might look like.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. This image was designed alongside these 3 others just because we knew when we were engaging with the community that people needed some sort of visual marker to connect with the language. So thank you for pointing that out. So yeah, we talked about pros, we talked about cons. I think that pretty much wraps up my project overview. So thank you. We have an optional site visit and library tour coming up on March 8th at 10 a.m. You're all very welcome to that. We are going to try and record that as well. Again, our partnership with Middlebury Community Television will come in handy. Their executive director, Kurt, will try and film that so we can make it available after the fact. March 20th will be deadline for questions. And March 27th will be the deadline for responding to the RFQ. Questions that come up after this meeting or as you're working on your RF or your statements of qualification, you can email those to me, and then I will post answers to questions on the website. So I am going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other. And Joe and Judith, if you have anything you'd like to add, I think now would be the time, and then we can open it up to questions.
Sure. Thank you, Dana. I just wanted to jump in here and say that Dana had pointed to 3 different websites related to this project. One of these is the website relating to the project team. One is just for you guys on the RFQ side, and one is kind of used mostly for communications with the community. If you want to do a deeper dive into this project, if you go to the middle of those websites, which is the one for the project team, you can find minutes of every meeting that we've had every 2 weeks for the last year or so. I'd encourage you to take a look at the slide presentations or the YouTube videos of our public presentations, where we're kind of talking initially about our vision and then trying to narrow down the options there. There's also kind of a document repository going back for many years of some of the earlier thinking about this project. So there's quite a lot there if you have the time, energy, and inclination to dig into it.
Judith, do you have any thoughts that you want to share?
No, I'm pleased to see so many folks interested, and we'll try to respond as quickly as we can to your questions as they come through, and look forward to seeing your responses.
So I guess I would just jump in to say, you know, we're recording this, and we welcome your questions at this time, but because we are a municipal library, most of our proceedings are subject to public meeting law, and we've got to make sure that we're keeping the playing field even for anyone who's not here, which is why we're requesting those written questions. But if people have questions now, Dana, how do you want to do this? Do you want people to raise their hands? Do you want to do it through the chat? What do you think?
Why don't we have people raise their hands? We'll go that way. So if anyone has a question, please go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, Kelly.
I haven't had a chance to look at all the links yet, but are the site plan and existing floor plans? I know you shared 3 different links. Is that part of that project team link?
Existing floor plans will be yes, they are on the project team link.
Actually, I think you'll find them on the RFQ link.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
So on the RFQ page, you will find either 3 or 4 pages worth of the current plans of the building. You'll also find I think, a very detailed square footage plan. You'll also find a series of adjacency diagrams, which again are in no way set in stone, but just kind of some of the thinking that we've done about what processes are best near each other. But of course, this is down the road, right? But
Alex.
Yeah, just curious if you could expand a little more on your thinking about relocating during construction. Any of those, if there's been any conversation. If not, like, are you talking about modulars? Are you going on a completely different site? Some of that.
Oh, what a good question.
Oh, sorry.
No, it is a really good question. S- So we have started talking about it. All we've really considered so far is what kind of buildings might be available for rent in Middlebury. And at the time, it's tricky because we're still a ways away from construction. So who knows what will be available at that point. So we've been trying to think about how much square footage would we really need for a temporary location. And the answer that I keep coming back to is pretty much whatever we can get. I know we're not going to be able to find a temporary location as big as our current library, so we're probably looking at some combination of reducing services and programs temporarily and moving most of our circulating collection into offsite storage, and then just keeping new materials available for circulation. But we do not have firm plans at this
Yeah.
point.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you.
I would just jump in to say, we often have well-meaning patrons and members of the community who say, oh, it's a renovation. It's no big deal. You can just put up some plastic. We have no plans of trying to stay in the building during the renovation process. So.
Sounds good.
Okay, I think I saw Ben's hand next.
Yes, thank you. And kudos to you guys. This is a very well organized meeting. You guys clearly have done a lot of work and outlined everything very clearly. I was hoping to get some perspective from you on your approach to go past the qualification stage with the sort of design proposal kind of vision phase and how you kind of landed on that as part of your process. And I guess to add another level of detail to the inquiry, what level of design are you anticipating or hoping that stage gets to?
I will start by answering the first part of your question, or at least partially answering it, and then maybe this is a question we'll elaborate on after the meeting and post on our website. But one of the things we really want to do is engage the community in this process and get them keep them excited, since we've had support. And so the idea of the next phase of conceptual design would be to really allow for a process that will be exciting and engaging to the community. Judith, do you want to talk about specifics of what we're looking for during that stage, or is this a question that we should answer on the website after? Oh, Judith, you're muted still.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about the origin of how we arrived at this notion. It actually came from a former select board member as a thought, because any previous attempts that we had made, we zoned in on one option, and community members didn't react well to the idea of not having choices. So we're trying this time to listen much more carefully to the community and get their reactions as we go along. So the idea of a design competition came forward as one way of doing that. It would involve the community in terms of their review of those designs as they're put forward. And it would also let us see how the project teams respectively deal with the public, which is very much of what this project is about. We're not specific at this point at all about what would constitute conceptual design or vision. We are not expecting complete schematic design. Once we have a direction, the firm that becomes the most outstanding one in terms of our selection procedure will then be asked to complete to the level of full schematic design so that we can get to a bond vote number that we can count on. And that bond vote currently is envisioned for March of 2024. So we will have the balance of this year to convert the favored conceptual design into schematics with a number.
Thank you, Judith, for putting that much more eloquently than I did.
Yes, thank you.
Sandra.
Hi, good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Yes, it was a very good presentation. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. In the RFQ, you mentioned examining the relationship with the town office building. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Judith, do you want to take this one as well?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. Our previous attempts to come up with a solution for the library have been treated as an island, and also for many of them, the town offices was not in place at that time. The two buildings in their design have been treated as separate entities. The entrances for them go along a sidewalk that comes from Main Street back to a parking lot, and they do address each other. They're facing each other, but no further connection has been considered. We have seen other libraries that are more a part of a town center that have other entities with them. And that idea is intriguing to us somewhat. That may mean that there could be a common greeter, for example, for a town center function. So that's why we brought it up as a possibility for establishing a more substantive connection virtually or actually with the town office building.
Is there a place where we could find those, any kind of drawings for the town office building?
I think we can probably get those onto the website. You can certainly see them on Google Earth. You can see them on some of the site plans in terms of alignment, but
Right.
that is a good question. If that is helpful to understand how that works, we'd be happy to do that.
Wonderful, thank you.
I would just note that at present, there is a very active sidewalk in between these two buildings, which is something to think about in terms of traffic patterns. And could I just also say that the idea of connecting the library with the town offices is it's just one way we could go. Nobody said, gee, we have to do this. This is a requirement. It's just one possibility. So I wouldn't put all your energy into that particular aspect of things.
Other questions? David.
I was curious as to how many firms do you anticipate pre-qualifying to go to the next step for the design competition?
I think 3 to 4 is the number that we've had in our minds.
And I just want to say, we understand that times being what they are, you guys are all incredibly busy, which is great for business. But we understand as well that you may have other irons in the fire, or fish to fry, or buildings to build. So we're thrilled with your interest in this possibility, but we understand it's not something, probably something for everybody. And we're sorry that we can't make use of all of you. Budget doesn't go that far.
Andrea?
In the RFP, Dana, you folks mentioned you would like to see a fee schedule provided as part of the response to the request for qualifications. It says in parentheses hourly rates. Is that all you're looking for, hourly rates from the architecture team and consultants, or are you looking for some other fee structure or fee for the preliminary phases of the work?
That's a great question that I'm gonna ask Judith if she wants to weigh in on, and if not, that's one that we'll answer on the website after. Judith?
I think our intent has been today just to ask for hourly rates and not get into more contractual information until later on in the project when we're looking for requests for proposals as a step further down. So we didn't want this particular phase to necessarily be about money. In terms of professional fees, we have a reservation in our budget of 10% for that. So we would really like to emphasize more exciting design in this aspect.
Any other questions? Okay, well, if more questions come up, which I'm sure they will, feel free to email me. And then, as I mentioned, we have an optional site visit and tour next week. So I hope to see some of you there. And thank you all very, very much for your time and interest. As Joe said,
Dana,
you know it's a busy time. Yeah, Joe?
Dana, would you like people to indicate if they're likely to attend that? Because I'm seeing about 20 people on this call, and if everybody shows up, we would probably want to do that in 2 batches rather than all at once.
That is a really good point. That's a great point. Fitting
I mean,
20
I
people.
know that in some cases we have multiple representatives from the same firm here, but if we could, would you like people to email you or?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, if you could email me if you plan on attending, that would be really helpful. And if, as Joe said, if we do get a huge amount of interest, maybe I will break that up into 2 groups and correspond with you further about 2 separate tours. Maybe
Yeah,
one.
we'd like for everybody to get a good look at the place,
Yeah.
and if it's some of the corridors and hallways are a little bit narrow, and if you're way down at the other end, you might not hear what's going on. On the other hand, we are planning to video record that that tour if you're at a distance or unable to work that into your schedule, and we'll post that on the RFQ portion of the website, probably on YouTube when we're done. So.
Okay, great. I'll look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much for coming. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.